welcome, Mike. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited about our conversation. I don't think these listeners even know what's coming for them. So let's start out with giving the listeners a little bit of background on how you and I met. We met at Buffini and Company, which is a coaching organization that I still am very much a part of. You were actually employed by Buffini and Company for many years, and now you're off doing all these amazing other wonderful things. But tell the listeners kind of what it was like when we first met and what you're doing now.
Awesome. Well, it was one of the honors of my life to serve at Buffini Company for 14 years. And so that's where we met, and had a variety of different roles there, starting out as a business coach and ended up at the last 8 years as COO of the company. So amazing time. Loved it. Met so many great people like yourself.
Yep.
And now have an opportunity to do a couple different things. I have Modus Coaching and Consulting with Eric Johnson, which we do executive coaching and business consulting, and then also partner with Eric and a few others in TeamZ, which is a software company that's focused on serving the network marketing and direct sales industry. So having a blast with that, and the last 6 years have been pretty amazing. So.
Well, I've loved watching you and Eric grow through all of that. And, I'm just going to start really quickly. There's a lot of realtors who have side hustles in other industries like the network marketing space, right? That sell products or services. And so if you all haven't checked out TeamZ, TeamZy, as a source to organize not only your clients that purchase things from you, but also your downlines. I think that's what they're called, Mike. Is that correct?
Yep.
Am I using the network lingo correctly? You guys definitely should check that out. But let's get into what we want to talk about today. So what I've enjoyed getting to know you, Mike, over the years, and knowing you both at the company you used to work for before, and then knowing you personally and professionally now, and you being a huge part of Harold and I's business, is that you've just got some really great foundational principles on relationships. And you, more importantly, have some foundational principles on relationships and how it relates to repeat and referral business. So just give us your 30,000 degree view of what the real core meaning of relationships is to you and how it translates to business.
Well, as we learned, both working with and through Buffini and Company, relationships are everything. And at the same time, how we connect with those and how we continue those relationships is really the key. And so many people, especially business people, think about the business part of it, and how can I get business? How can I connect this person for the business versus the sake of relationship, the sake of connecting, the sake of building trust, the sake of adding value, the sake of just having that dynamic of who can I connect with and build trust with. And so the mindset, and then another perspective is the heart set of that. Is not just the mind and heart, but what's my purpose for developing this relationship. The other dynamic too is so many times we look at it from how can we connect with them in the way that's convenient for us. And really the context of connecting is really about what's the best way to connect with them. So we're now in a dynamic where, so many years people talked about millennials and this and that about millennials. And the reality is that millennials are now 25 to 40 years old.
Yep.
Right. And how they want to be connected with is different. So we have to serve them in that context.
I love what you just said about you have to check yourself almost to what's your intention in building the relationship, right? Is the intention of building the relationship truly because I care about the person, or is it just because I want a sale and they look like someone who might want, in talking in real estate specifically, they look like someone that might want to buy or sell a home? How can we as professionals check ourselves internally on what, like you said, what is really on our heart as far as the reason behind why we're building that relationship? What things can someone do to make sure they're really doing it for the right reasons?
Right. Well, number one is to check our intention. What is our intention? What's the purpose of what we're doing? And to build rapport. So if we want people to connect with what we do, we have to connect with what they do and who they are. So if we don't
who they are,
because it's build rapport. Like, what's important to that person? What do they enjoy? What do they like? What do they like to talk about?
Yeah.
And where do they like to do it? Or do I know this person from Facebook? Well, connect with them on Facebook, connect with them on Messenger. Do I know this person socially in another way? Okay, well, that's the text. So, but that whole what's my intention?
Yeah.
Why do I want to do this? And do I really want to do this? Is this
Yeah.
somebody I really want to connect with? Because people constantly ask me, like, who should be in my list, who should be in my
Yeah.
CRM, and who should be in my team Z if it's somebody
Yeah.
we're serving. And I said, anybody you want to deepen a relationship with, anybody you
Yep.
want to connect with on a consistent basis, that's who should be in there.
Yeah.
But if you don't really like the person, or there's not really a place to connect, then focus on other people.
Right. Absolutely. So checking your heart and checking your mindset about the relationship is so important, because there's plenty of other ways to do real estate transactionally. There's plenty of other ways to do business with a very transactional mindset where you don't really care about the person. So you don't really need to care about the relationship. It's, are you going to serve them? Right? Do a good job for them. And then are you going to ultimately close the transaction, get paid, and move on? And frankly, that's how most realtors operate, right? The old,
Absolutely.
I've heard it. I was not around in these days, but the find them, fleece them, and forget them mindset, right? And that's really how quickly can you get to a certain number of transactions, a certain number of sales volume, right? Or take
Right.
over a market share. But what I've found is that it's just so much more fulfilling inside of me to actually really care about the person, right?
Absolutely.
But you have to care in a way that the person knows you care about them more than a transaction. So unpack that for a minute. What do you see as the mindsets behind that? The mindsets behind actually caring about someone more than a transaction.
Well, I think the whole dynamic is choosing how you want to serve, right?
Mm,
When people often ask me, it's like, well, this method works, whether it's cold calling or whatever, or just transactional perspectives.
mhm.
And I'm constantly saying everything that exists works.
Yep,
Every system, every method works. If it didn't work, it wouldn't exist. Now,
exactly.
question becomes, there's some criteria you have to that involved, as far as choosing a way to work isn't congruent with who you are as a person.
Mm,
Is it congruent with the values that you represent? Is it something that you can enjoy doing? And is it something that's scalable? Is it something that you can do for the long term? Because so
love
many
it.
people get into business and go, I'm just going to go hit it hard and do it this way because that's what my mentor told me to do. And they go and they get burned out, or they realize it's not really a dynamic of something they enjoy, or it's not congruent with who they are, just kind of hammering people. So one is choosing how you want to serve. One is deciding how you want to serve. And then, okay, if that's the case, then I have to have a different mind and heart set to be able to execute that.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just going to go down, like you said, a transactional versus a relational perspective. You're just going to go down just thinking from that perspective. How can I get business? How can I look at people as targets versus relationships? But choosing that and deciding ahead of time what you're going to do and why you're going to do that is key.
Absolutely, absolutely love that. Okay, you and I have talked so much offline about relationships, trust, and referrals. And you have a great way to say it and a great way to explain it. Can you share that with our listeners?
Well, the whole dynamic is we talk about introductions versus referrals,
Yep.
and in terms of when you're talking about a referral, it's still powerful words, still meaningful, it's still what's the industry typically uses.
Yep.
But at the same time, are you referring somebody for business, or are you introducing somebody to a relationship?
Yep.
And that's the key, because that whole dynamic is different than going, here, I'm referring you to this real estate professional because they can help you buy or sell a home, or this is a great person I know in my sphere of influence and the places that I connect with, that
Yep.
I want to introduce you to because you need to know this person.
Yep. And then when a realtor is working on gaining that trust, right? They've got to show up, they've got to be there, they've got to be there as a resource for real estate needs, obviously, but they also have to consistently, again, show up in that relationship. So let's talk about how those relationships, how do you garner that trust? I mean, is trust just through consistency, or does there have to be something else behind it?
Well, consistency is key, and that's where most people actually don't follow through. So the consistency is key. Um, and just connecting at that level of the core connection of what the relationship is about, um, and finding ways that the meaningful ways that are meaningful to them to do
Right.
that.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked a lot about connecting, and I love that word too, because you know me, I hate calls. I don't like calling people at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and saying, "Hey, Mike, how's your day going?" Well, Mike's a school teacher and has got 25 kindergartners sitting in front of him, right? I just don't think that's the best way to garner and grow relationships. So, connecting, let's clarify that for everyone, right? Connecting is text message, email, direct message, Instagram, Facebook. You ran into them at the grocery store, right? They
Right.
did call you for something else, but it turned into a connecting like conversation where maybe they asked you how business was going. There's all different ways to connect with people. And how do we get realtors specifically, because you know this obviously audience is mostly real estate professionals, how do we get them out of the mindset of the only way to call someone or do an activity or connect with somebody is asking them who they know that needs to buy or sell real estate, that's not getting you to the ultimate end goal.
Right. Well, that whole dynamic too is if we think about what our job is in connecting, our job on a daily basis is to add value, but our job is to create conversations.
Yep.
So we have to ask ourselves, what's the best way to create a conversation with this person? And again, we've all seen the memes that said like, why are you calling me on my cell phone? I don't use it for that,
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
there is a time and a place to talk to somebody or call somebody, especially when you're serving them in a transaction or during the process. But at the same time, on an ongoing basis, how do we connect with them in a way that's meaningful? Checking in with them, just seeing how they're doing,
Right.
making their day. A whole make their day mindset is really
Love
something
it.
that we espouse and really communicate. It's like if you think about it from the perspective, what can I do to make this person's day to day?
Yep.
What can I do to reach out, text, messenger, whatever the context for the relationship is? How can I make that person's day? How can I add value? How can I create a conversation that is about them and get them to respond in a way that's again not forced and not coerced, type of thing, that
Yeah.
type of thing.
So what you just said is so key. How can I make their day? And I often forget about that because it's been so drilled into me now that that's all I do every day is make someone's day. As you know very well, being a consultant and coach in my life, you know, on my calendar, I trick myself into lead generating by having MSD messages on my calendar. And
Yep.
MSD messages, that's not a drug, friends. MSD is make someone's day calls. Because when I look at that on my calendar as, oh, crud, it's time to do lead generation calls or relationship calls or whatever you want to call them, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But when I see that all I have to do for an hour is make someone's day, I can do that all day long. I can do
Yeah.
that all day long. So, what do you suggest if a realtor had to make 10 make someone day messages today? What are they saying to them? What's the first sentence they're typing, or what are they saying if they do have a conversation with them?
It's as simple as saying, hey Barb, I was thinking about you. Just want to see how you're doing. Hope you're having a great day. I mean, don't overthink it. Don't think about the magic words. Think about what would you now, if you saw somebody or if you thought of somebody, what would you say to them? What would you
Yep,
do to reach out and connect with
yep,
them?
yep.
Um,
We
Overthinking is
complicate it. We
over
complicate it.
complicated.
We
Yeah.
complicate it, and then we get into, I'm going to do something else now. That's easier, right?
Yep.
I'm going to check the box on my to-do list because reaching out and making yourself vulnerable and putting a conversation out there sometimes is not easy, right?
Right.
Something that I love to do is when I'm looking at doing my connections for the day or the people that I need to connect with, whether it's um, internally with my own team, because I need to connect with them, whether it's my database, because we do actively still sell real estate, or whether it's connecting with the real estate community, which is another passion of mine. I always like to go to their Instagram or Facebook and kind of check in on what's been going on in their lives. Because we all know, I don't know if you know it, breaking news, the Facebook algorithm does not show everybody to you every day. It
Right.
doesn't mean that you don't like them. It just means Facebook didn't decide to show you their update to you. So
Right.
if you go check their Facebook and look at the past 2 or 3 posts that they made them for a reason. They made them so someone would respond. People don't post on Facebook and go, oh, please, 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 nobody respond. Please just don't respond.
Right.
They post because they want a response. So why wouldn't you use that as a connection point when you're reaching out and calling to people? Why do you think people don't think about finding those points of connection and capitalizing on them?
Right. Right. Because we're thinking from our perspective and we're not
Mm,
stepping into their shoes. The most powerful thing we can do is to step into something. I mean, we've heard it a million times. And one of my favorite quotes is from Samuel Johnson. It says, we need to be reminded more than we need to be instructed, you know?
mm.
And at the end of the day, everything we need to know and do, we've already read, we've already heard, we've already seen in some way, shape, or form. But what is it that we have to do? And stepping into somebody else's shoes and either seeing what have they been going through, what's been important to them, and communicating on that level, congratulating them, or saying, hey, that's great, or that's a beautiful dog, or your kids have grown so much,
Love it.
whatever the case. Just, it's about them. It's about them. And we hold ourselves back from doing that. We withhold the opportunity to connect and bless somebody because we're thinking about, oh, what are they going to think? Or it's been a long time since I talked to them. We overthink.
That is
Overthinking.
golden. What you just said, and you're even teaching me, as always, you always have a way to get into my 6 inches between my ears. What you're saying is part of the reason that we're afraid to connect and reach out is that we've been so trained as salespeople to ask for something. We've been so trained to make it about us, and you just said make it about them.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Okay, I want to talk about leadership because you just dropped some amazing, liquid gold on everybody, but I know the real gift you have is in the leadership conversation. And you have a couple thoughts on the kind of basics of leadership in business and how we got to show up as leaders in all parts of our lives. So break that down for me. Where do we have to start first when we become a leader in our business?
Well, if we think about leadership, everything that we see today, everything we've experienced in the past, whether it's worldwide or citywide or, statewide or family wide, whatever our dynamics everything comes down to good, bad, poor, excellent leadership.
Yep.
And the best explanation of leadership is that I've ever heard, as far as the simplest, is John Maxwell says leadership is influence. Leadership is
Mm.
influence. At the end of the day, leadership is influence. Now, again, we can influence poorly or we can influence powerfully. We can influence negatively or we can influence positively. We can
Mhm.
influence in a mediocre way or we can influence purposefully. So the number one person that we have to lead, though, is ourselves,
Mm.
right? When it comes down to it, if we're not leading ourselves, then we can't lead others. We have the opportunity to influence others if we're not influencing ourselves, if we're not feeding our heart and our mind in a way that's going to help us be that influence. And that dynamic is powerful. Once we understand that and own that, then then our opportunity, whether it's in our concentric circles too, is right. Where's the place we want to lead the most? Our families, our
Yep.
friends, and then our responsibilities professionally, whatever those may be. But at the end of the day, it's that. What's the opportunity to influence? And Simon Sinek is one of my favorite people too. If you haven't read him or watch, just look at YouTube and watch Simon Sinek. Brilliant stuff about servant leadership. It's about that whole mindset. But he said, people can only be influenced two ways. To get influence and to help people. It's you either manipulate people or you inspire people. That's the
Mm.
only way to get people to move forward and to influence them. You either manipulate them or you inspire them. And inspire is another cool word that I love because inspired actually means like to blow life into. It's to like if it to take a flame and fan the flame so it grows.
Mm.
So it literally means to inspire is to help somebody, to help them move forward and to help them grow and to fan the flame, to blow life into, to help them become more. Tall charge, but my gosh, what a great way to look at life and to go through life is to who can I inspire? I don't want to manipulate people. That's
No.
not, and it doesn't last. I want to inspire people. I want to influence people.
Well,
How can I do that?
the number one pushback that I get from my own agents and from the real estate industry, I know you get this pushback in being a coach. I don't want to ask people for business because I don't want to be a pushy salesperson. And what you're saying by leadership by manipulation, that's when you are being a pushy salesperson. And no
Yeah.
one should want to do that, right?
Right.
Most
Right.
good salespeople don't want that done upon them, which is why they're afraid to pick up the phone and call people instead of leading with that. How am I influencing? How am I giving back? How am I making this person's day better? Correct?
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And at the end of the day, people want to be led. So whether they know it or not, like it's taking your profession of what you do every day, you're leading people through a transaction, and they
Absolutely.
don't realize the dynamics of what's involved in that, but they want to be led. They want to be led in what should I do here? How should I, what's the decision? They have to make the decision ultimately, but you guide them and lead them from a professional standpoint. But personally,
Absolutely.
there's all kinds of other places we can influence and lead as well.
Well, and that's the thing I love about working relationally is that you're not just showing up for your database and your clients during the transaction. Yes, that's how you sometimes
Right.
create the relationship, deepen the relationship. That's your first interaction with someone, especially if they were just referred to you. But all of the things that happen after you close escrow and all of the influence you can be in their life, you can be a leader in their life through not having to ask them every day if they know anyone who's looking to buy or sell real estate. My number one pet peeve.
Right. Right. It's opportunities are everywhere.
Yeah.
And the thing is staying top of mind and staying connected. The other dynamic there too is so many times we prioritize our opportunities based on how much business someone's given us. And the
Mhm.
reality is we need to prioritize those lists based on the level of relationship we have with them. Level of
Amen.
relationship we have with them.
Amen. We could just end right now. That was like a final moment, but we need to unpack that because you've taught me so much about that. And I've applied so much of that to my business. And you know that I'm a huge proponent of finding out who your advocates are. Right.
Right.
And finding out, quite frankly, I really want to ask every realtor listening to this, whether you call it A+, whether you call it 5-star like I do, whether you call it advocates, I don't care what you call it. Are your best clients day in and day out? Are they the closest to you? Are they your best friends? Typically, yes. I don't have any A+, advocates, or 5-star people in our business who I do not break bread with, who I do not do things socially with, who I do not text funny memes to when I'm thinking about it, who I do not comment and engage on a daily basis on their social media as they do on mine, who if I ran into them in the grocery store, it's a 30-minute conversation when you're trying to move on to get your broccoli or whatever, section you're
Right.
in, right? These are the people who you have the deepest relationships with. Day in, day out, hands down, no doubt about it. And you just said it. It's the people you're closest to.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
huge. That's
People
huge.
closest to that you have the most trust. It's if you talk about degrees of warmth, the warmest, the hottest in terms of not just the hottest that they can give me business today. No, the hottest in terms of level of relationship,
Yep.
trust, connection, rapport, enjoying time together.
Yep.
And not because,
We did a
whatever amount.
transaction together 5 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the trust factor though, because this is something that I'm constantly beating down is that you can be I think I've figured it out. As you know, I'm writing a book, although be it very slowly, but the person co-sharing the screen with me is encouraging me to do it much quicker. But Real Estate by Relationship, the book is coming out. But one thing I've deducted from all the research I've done and looking at my own business and talking to others is that sales is all about know, like, and trust. No one's going to do business with you if they don't know you, like you, and trust you. But what I figured out and what I've realized in my own business is people can know you and like you, but the trust doesn't come automatically. Someone the other day I heard on a podcast say, oh, if people know you and like you, they'll trust you. No, there's a lot of people I know and like, but I don't trust them in what they do for business because they haven't proven it to me.
Right.
They haven't given me a reason to trust them. And
Right.
that's where I feel like the system that I apply to my business and my company and my brokerage is that consistency piece that you have to remind them you are a good realtor. You
Yeah.
have to remind them you are a pro. And that's, in my opinion, why you can't just constantly be like, how are you doing? What can I do for you today? All of that's fantastic. But
Yeah.
every once in a while, you have to take the opportunity to ask. Now,
Absolutely.
asking every single time you talk to somebody, in my opinion, is where you're manipulating. But asking when the time's appropriate is the key, in my opinion, to capitalizing on the trust so that you can get that repeat and referral business. So when we talk about consistency and we talk about asking, do we ask every time we talk to somebody? Do we ask every 6 times we talk to somebody? What's the right ebb and flow of that, Mike? I know you have a thought on that.
Well, I mean, part of it is looking at in the context of everything else you're doing. So I know you're a proponent of sending monthly mailings
Yep.
to the best relationship.
Yep.
So if you think about all the ways you're touching them, you have to take that into consideration.
Okay.
And those things that they're seeing in the mailbox are a reminder of that.
Yep.
But at the same time, asking or reminding them doesn't have to be awkward. I mean, we've heard a lot of different great ways to say it over the
Right.
years that are just a reminder. Those are awesome.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is just simply saying, "Hey, just remember, I'm always available to help any of your friends and family."
Yep. Yep. Love it.
It's super simple. At the same time, like you said, or bringing up something. Eric and I have a phrase that we use with the people we teach and coach in network marketing and direct sales is, and I've shared this with every business person because I believe it's true. I was just talking to somebody the other day that's in a completely different type of business. And here's the thing. You always have to be ready to share what you do and why you're passionate about it. What you do and why you're passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because dropping something in the conversation, or they say, how you're doing, or you check in with them and it's, how are you doing, Barb? I'm doing awesome.
Yeah.
And you share something that just happened or somebody who just helped.
Yep.
And then the passion, if they don't see, because again, they could trust you as a professional that you're going to get the job done, but people like people who are passionate about stuff too. Right. So if they understand you're passionate about what you do, then that builds trust even more. But you can drop that in, you can talk about something in a positive way. You can talk about people who've helped and reminding them that you do what you do.
Sometimes with my closest friends, and I haven't talked about this probably enough, but something I do with my closest friends is sometimes in the course of conversation, in the course of lunch, in the course of wherever we're together, or we're having a conversation, I will say, I'm going to put my real estate hat on for a moment, right? I take the friend hat off and I put the real estate hat on. And sometimes that's just as simple as giving myself permission to talk about real estate for a minute, right? Yeah. Or my other favorite opportunity that I think happens almost every time I'm talking to a good friend or following up with a great client that I maybe haven't spoken to in a while, especially right now in 2021. Yeah. Real estate is the topic of every household, every cocktail party, every article, right? Real estate. Yeah. 9 out of 10 times someone's going to say, "Hey, Barb, how's business? Hey, Barb, how's real estate? What's the market doing?" And that literally, my friends, is your permission to talk about real estate. It's your permission to talk about your business. They just asked you. So many times agents will tell me, "Well, I just tell them real estate's great. The market's on fire. Houses are slinging off the shelves." Great. What did that tell them? Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. You just walked away from an opportunity to tell them, update them on the market, update them on what's going on in real estate, and then remind them, like you just said, Mike. And, Mike, I want to remind you, if you need any real estate advice or have a friend or family member who just has some real estate questions, I'm happy to always be a resource for you guys. What's Mike going to say? Of course, wouldn't dream of calling anyone else. Thank you so much for always supporting us.
Right.
And that is an ask. But we've been trained that if we didn't ask, who do you know is looking to buy or sell? Or are you looking to buy or sell? Then we didn't do our job. And I think that's why agents shy away from lead generation and don't do it.
Well, and that's another aspect of leadership. You're leading that conversation in a way that's, again, you're not manipulating, you're inspiring, you're communicating, you're expressing who you are and what you do, and then why you're passionate about it. Mm-hmm. And leadership too is another dynamic of leadership that when it comes down to, when you're having those conversations or you're doing it, is about priorities. Priorities are everything when it comes to leadership, being a leader and being effective at being a leader. Yeah. I learned something recently that I didn't know. The word priority, right? Priority is something we hear about. For the first 500 years of the use of the word priority, there was no plural, because the priority meant it was the priority. It was the number one thing that was the most important. So there was no need for other priorities, right? Now, I'm a huge fan of saying priorities and talking about priorities, but here's the real thing is, in the moment, right now, based on what my highest and best use of my time is, what is my priority right now? Right? that's the power of going, what's the number one thing to do right now? And then, as we've talked about, when it comes down to leading ourselves, our day and our time are the most valuable things we have to be able to influence and connect and do all the things that we're supposed to be doing. So it comes down to priorities and percentages. Here are my priorities for the day, week, month. But what percentage of time am I going to give to each one of those priorities? Because sometimes the most important priority is only 15 minutes, but something else that's a second or third is an hour. So sometimes the highest priorities takes the least amount of time. But if we don't really think about it in terms of
Yeah.
how to structure our day, then we're not going to be as effective as we could be.
Wow. I think now we've hit the overwhelm button with everyone, because that in itself could be an hour-long conversation. I love talking about priorities. You just taught me something new I did not know, which is so, so, so true. It's why I have a planner that I write in every single day. And on the top of the planner, it's already built this way. It says my top 3 priorities for the day. And I do put the 3 most important things there. And it is hard sometimes to not attack those top 3 things, right? But
Right.
it really is your leadership and committing to yourself, right? That you're leading
Right.
yourself into ensuring that those priorities get done. That is
Absolutely.
amazing. Okay, we talked so much about leadership, and you have for those of you listening, if you're catching this on YouTube or on the replay, you can see all the books behind Mike's head. But if you're on audio, just know he's got 3 very large bookcases full of books. Okay. I want you to give me your favorite book all time.
Ooh.
What would it be?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one. Yeah, that's a tough one. I'll give you one of the most powerful, meaningful books.
Perfect.
And I'm actually rereading it right now because I ascribe to C.S. Lewis stated that a wise person reads a book more than once. And I know there's so many opportunities to read new books, but
Yep.
I actually navigate between reading new and going back into something old. And I'm reading something right now because my daughter finally was interested. My 19-year-old daughter, a mentor of hers, mentioned the book. I go, hey, it's a book that meaningful to me.
Yeah.
It's Man's Search for Meaning by Victor
Oh,
Frankl.
yes.
I'm rereading that right now for the umpteenth time. And just in context of where we are right now, but just in general, just from the perspective of the power of the mind, the power of the heart, the power to influence in a way that's meaningful and that's literally life and death type
Love.
mindset.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Okay. What's your favorite leadership book? If someone wants to work on leadership qualities within themselves and their business, what's your favorite leadership book?
There's a lot to there, but I'd say as far as the one that encapsulates some great principles that you can, digest is Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Love
is
it.
one that I think every leader should read, even if it's, dynamics of, again, that's 21 laws is a lot, but it's a matter of, what do I need to do right now? What do I need to work on right now?
Well, and some of them, I know from that book, some of them may be qualities you already are really good at. You're not doesn't mean you have to work on all 21, but of those 21,
Correct.
or over half are things that you can improve on. And I'm a firm believer, you're either growing or you're dying. We're either growing and becoming better versions of ourselves, or we're retracting back and becoming lesser versions of ourselves, which means you just have less to give. And so growing and continuing to look at yourself as a leader is so, so, so important.
Yeah.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for being here today and sharing all of this with our listeners. I know there's people that are going to want to connect with you. So I'm assuming possibly LinkedIn might be the best place to connect with you. Where should they connect with you if they want to learn more?
LinkedIn's perfect. Or Facebook is great too. Love to connect with anybody, offer any value that I can. And it's been a true honor and pleasure to be with you, Barb. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you. And I know that this is going to be a saved episode and a re-listened to episode, which I love. My favorite thing is to go back and listen to them over and over again, because as they say, the teacher learns the most, right? And I love to go back and hear and listen and digest. But friends, if you enjoyed today's episode, I would love for you to leave us a 5-star review. And more importantly, if you enjoyed what you're hearing today, make sure and hit the subscribe button and share it with all your friends. Mike, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you immensely. And friends listening, I hope you take all of the things that we talked about today, apply 1 or 2 to your business, and I hope you will see you and your business grow. Until next time, friends, we'll see you again soon. Bye.